And welcome back. The COVID-19 pandemic has presented many challenges to communities all across the nation. Many have had to adapt to the new environment that 2020 simply has brought. Libraries are no different. In fact, libraries and librarians have employed an array of creative ideas while facing the challenge of continuing to provide resources to patrons and ensuring the community gets access to what they need. The Everyday Library Institute is a not-for-profit organization whose mission is to support libraries and librarians in the United States and abroad. They partner with allied organizations, including foundations, philanthropic organizations, as well as not-for-profits and academic institutions to enhance the perception of libraries and librarianship through direct engagement with the public. Well, during this election cycle, tens of millions of dollars are at stake specifically for libraries, from bonding for new or remodel building projects to changing levies or taxes that can impact staffing, collections, programs, and services. Here now to share more a little bit about it is the Political Director of the Everyday Library Institute, Patrick Sweeney. And Patrick, good to have you here with us here on the Social Justice Forum.
Sure, I appreciate you having me.
No, well, it's glad to have you and to talk about libraries. I mean, when we talk about the issue of libraries, particularly in this COVID-19 pandemic, let's start there. Talk about how the pandemic has actually infected libraries.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting. What libraries have actually found is that their use has gone drastically higher. A lot more people are using libraries digitally right now than really ever have before. And people are really discovering a lot of the digital tools that libraries have kind of hidden for the last, 10, 15 years. People just didn't know about so many aspects of what a library has to offer online. And they're really coming to find out now. And that includes everything from more traditional things that you think a library would have, such as downloadable ebooks, movies, videos, TV shows, music that you can get with your library card, all for free, of course, but also a lot of the deeper digital kind of things that help small businesses. There's a lot of market research databases available. There are a lot of tools for entrepreneurs to start their own businesses. There's homework, after school homework help that's provided through a lot of libraries. And people are really discovering this and exploring all these tools that we had previously available. I think it's a great time, actually. I mean, yeah. Let me rephrase that. I don't think it's a great time at all. However, we do see a lot of opportunity with libraries and people discovering those resources that we have.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously for exposure, and I mean, we understand what you meant there, that certainly people are becoming more and more familiar with libraries. And I think that when we talk about libraries in this political season, as the election is just taking place, talk to us about things that really, you got funding that's that comes to libraries, and how the library is impacted, particularly by this election.
Yeah, so every year, every library works on about somewhere around 25 to 40 library ballot initiatives across the country. That's a big aspect of the work that we do. We provide support in a number of different ways. And what we've really been looking at is tracking a lot of the elections this year. And I think we're gonna see less libraries on the ballot. And right now we're only tracking somewhere around 50. Usually there's 75 to 100 going on a presidential election day. However, that is the big aspect of, that is the biggest piece of the pie for library funding in this country, is decisions from local decision makers and local voters. And so not a lot of people really realize how reliant libraries are on the goodwill of voters, on voter support, on local legislator support. And I don't think anybody's really going to disagree with me when I say there's a lot of turmoil in the political discourse right now. There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of resentment on both sides, no matter what your stance is. And libraries on the ballot, I think, are just one of those really shining examples of something that we've seen Americans come together around. People on the left and the right are both still overwhelmingly support their libraries, still overwhelmingly come out to vote for them. I think voters really understand entrepreneurship and how libraries support small businesses, small business owners, helping people with their startups, all of those kinds of things that make communities a lot more livable and financially secure and successful. And so I think, though, there's going to be some really interesting, collateral damage from that larger political discourse. I have no idea every who's going to show up for these elections. Every political consultant we talk to, and we work with political consultants across the spectrum, and nobody's taking any bets on the outcome of this election, or the fallout from this election, which I think is going to be the bigger impact on libraries.
Yeah. And talk to me about what could possibly be at stake. I mean, when we talk about the impact of this election, what could possibly be at stake in regards to libraries?
Sure. One of the big things at the federal level, if we're talking about presidential level politics, is that every year in the presidential proposed budget, Trump has cut the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and it's a hidden thing that a lot of people don't think about. It's not a whole lot of money. I mean, it's almost no money at the federal level for libraries, but it funds so many critical things that libraries do. And if there is another Trump presidency, then we really run the risk of losing the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And this is a program that funds a lot of things that local tax dollars can't fund legally. Or one-time projects, a lot of services to marginalized communities, a lot of services to hidden communities. It funds a lot of that kind of work, but also, I don't think people realize that this money from the federal government goes right back to their states. The states usually have some kind of matching agreement. And so it brings more money into their states to provide more library services. And it actually saves taxpayers significant amounts of money because it allows for libraries to do bulk purchases of media items, of database subscriptions, where if libraries were doing it on their own, we'd all be paying a lot more for our local library services,
Mm-hmm. And so for one who's out there watching right now saying, listen, you know what? We know the libraries are vital in our community. We hear and they've taken advantage of the library services. But yet and still, there's another faction of people who feel as though, well, we've got Google, we can do these, we've got internet. Just give a case for libraries. I mean, I know the benefit of it, but for somebody who may not have that same kind of perspective, share.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing that libraries do right now in this political environment is bring people together in a more truthful and honest way. And I think that's our biggest value add in a lot of our communities. We've had libraries for years and years, and libraries have a strong culture of providing factual, truthful, research-based information to the public. And in this time where you can Google anything you want on Google, I mean, it really doesn't matter what you believe. You can find somebody else who believes whatever it is that you believe and have your own reality sort of created around you by surrounding yourself with the information that you want, no matter how true or untrue. And I think that sets up a really dangerous environment without some kind of core organization in our communities that really looks at factual and truthful information. And that's just the information side. When we look at, the rise of extremism in this country, and one of the big indicators of extremism is people's level of isolation. And especially now during quarantine, when people are very isolated, once this is over, we're all gonna have to come back together somewhere and have a real discussion with each other, get to know each other again on some neutral playing ground, and really come to terms with some of the realities that are out existing right now. And I think libraries are a really amazing environment for that to happen because, I mean, every town has a library. There's more libraries in this country than there are Starbucks or McDonald's. So, right. I mean, there's no better network to re-engage with each other and have real great conversations with each other and start to rebuild out of this crisis.
Yeah. Libraries are not the forgotten institution, but sometimes they very well can be.
Mhm.
Talk to us about your work at Everyday Library. I mean, obviously, you do a great job of advocating and really making people and the public aware about the importance of libraries. Talk a little bit about your work.
Sure. So we do a lot of work to support libraries, primarily at the ballot box, but also school libraries. We call ourselves Every Library because we support every library, particularly around politics and funding. We've worked on supporting over 107 library ballot initiatives in some shape, way, or form. All of our support for libraries is done pro bono because we believe wholeheartedly in the mission of libraries and the value that they provide to their community. And it's just one of those organizations that we don't want to see go away. So when a library goes to the voters, they call us, we help them understand how to run a library campaign. Because the real nice thing about libraries is they're so homegrown that a lot of times the people who are running the campaign, they're not political operatives. They're not people who have run presidential campaigns. They're not people who have some nefarious like issue agenda or anything like that. They're just people who want to see something good in their community, and they've never really worked in politics before. And so we help them understand, how do you run a campaign? How do you look at a voter file? How do you talk to voters? What does an election day look like? I mean, all of that kind of process that these people who are running these library campaigns really don't understand.
So, for people who want to get connected with some of your issues, the initiatives, and the things that are going on, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, you can visit us at everylibrary.org. If you'd like to take action, sign a petition, let your congressional representatives know how you feel about them, or how you feel about libraries particularly. You can go to action.everylibrary.org. Again, that's action.everylibrary.org. And you can sign petitions and contact your reps and help them see how important libraries really are.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about 2021. As 2021 is really right around the corner right now. I know we're just coming out of an election, but at the same time, we're also dealing with 2021. How do you see
Mhm.
things playing out, particularly for libraries as we move into 2021, given the fact that many places around the country are still navigating this COVID pandemic?
Mhm.
And, as far as going out and being in public spaces, that being diminished some.
Yeah. I mean, of course, we have all the digital access and resources that we talked about before. But I think that we will see the end of COVID at some point in 2021, whether that's March or whatever the predictions are this week. But what I think is going to be really interesting that people aren't thinking about is when we put ourselves back to work as a country, when we all are able to come out, find jobs again, and all our businesses start opening, there's going to be massive hiring. The ISPs, for example, haven't committed to turning off people's internet during the crisis, which has been great, but you better believe that at the end of it, there's going to be a bill due. And when that bill comes, people are going to lose their internet at home. And I don't know if you've ever tried to apply for a job without the internet in the last like 10 years, but you just can't do it. And so if we want to put America back to work, I think, libraries are going to be a significant aspect of that, especially just for getting online because people aren't going to be able to.
Yeah, it's a lot to look forward to in terms of 2021. A lot that still remains at stake when we talk about the fact of, libraries and internet access. People do use the library for internet access. And I
Mhm.
know particularly in communities where, there's heavy rates of unemployment, poverty, the
Mhm.
library is the biggest resource.
Yeah, I mean, how else can you pull yourselves out of poverty if you don't have access to internet at home or a space to work? If you're in school and maybe you've got to get out of your home life and find some quiet place to work. I mean, libraries are that refuge for a lot of people. I mean, I came up as a librarian in California. And we had a lot of children that came in just because they didn't want to be at home. They wanted to get ahead, they wanted to study, they wanted to be successful, and they couldn't do that in the environments that they had at home. So they came to the library. And I think that was like so meaningful and the reason that so many of us do this kind of work, seeing those people really get the help they need to get ahead.
Well, we want to thank you for coming and sharing with us. Tell us a little bit more about, once again, how people get directly in contact with you.
Sure. Yeah, action.everylibrary.org if you want to sign a petition or take action on behalf of libraries, and then everylibrary.org if you want to find out more about our organization and about the work that we do. And we'd love to talk to you.
Patrick Sweeney, EveryLibrary, thank you so much for being with us and sharing and giving us a little bit more information into how libraries really shape our society. Thanks much.
Appreciate it.
All righty. Taking a quick break here on the Social Justice Forum. Don't go anywhere. We do have more show coming up. We'll be back in a few.